the Boston Library Consortium. Very pleased to welcome you to our Open Educational Resources Workshop. I want to start with a special thanks to Jane Morris and Marilyn Billings, who were very instrumental in helping me organize this particular event. It's so nice to see so many of you turned out. I'm glad it's not raining yet. We'll see as the day develops. We have a pretty full agenda with our keynote speaker and a number of presentations from libraries within the BLC who either are actively engaged in an OER project or in the process of planning some kind of a project. So it'll be very interesting to hear about the work that's being done. We're going to then end the day with a discussion of kind of next steps. Both Jane and Marilyn have expressed interest in the possibility of formalizing a community of interest around open educational resources within the BLC. And if there's interest in doing that, I'd like to gauge that interest at this event and also think about some additional initiatives, programming, etc., that such a group might be interested in being involved in. Okay. So I want to start by introducing our keynote. We're very lucky today to have David Ernst, who is the Chief Information Officer in the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Minnesota, the Twin Cities campus. David is also the director of the Center for Open Education and executive director of the Open Textbook Network, or OTN, which is an alliance of higher education institutions that are committed to improving access, affordability, and academic success through the use of open textbooks. David created and manages the Open Textbook Library, which is a single source for faculty to use to find quality, openly licensed textbooks. David and his colleagues are often invited to other institutions to develop open textbook initiatives, and I'm very pleased to have him available to us here today to talk to us. David.
Okay, wow. Thank you, Susan, and thanks for the invitation. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I present a lot, and I have a few presentations I give a lot. And if I gave one of those presentations today, I'd have you crying in the crowd. I mean, you'd be right there right now. This is a different group. This is a group of people who I think who seem to. It's different than normal. Usually I'm talking with faculty, I may be talking to, I don't know, but I put a little different presentation together today. I'm telling you that up front because it's always a little bit of a risk to do something the first time. But I threw lots of things in here, and I want to see kind of what sticks and what we can have conversations around. Some of them might not stick at all. We'll just kind of keep moving on. But I have a lot of thoughts here that I want to hear from you about as well. So please, at any time, ask questions, make comments, whatever you like during this presentation. So again, thank you for being here, for coming here and inviting me. I have to admit the humidity here kind of took me by surprise this morning. But I did turn on the TV and there was a commercial for snow tires, and I felt right at it. So anyway, with that, I do want to say that we're here today to talk about something more than normally I'm talking about textbooks, open textbooks. But I always want to start by saying that it's not really why we're here, right? I mean, you're not here because you're interested in textbooks, but I would think you're interested even in learning objects. You're here, I'm assuming, because you believe that education is a right. You believe that people should have equal access to education, something much more important than a textbook. A textbook is a strategy, or OER is a strategy for that, but I just want to start off by saying, I hope we're all on the same page with it, that this is what it's really all about. For me, that's what it's all about. And when I first kind of started with this project, I would look at this and I would, I saw this statement and I would kind of in my own US-centric way kind of think, oh, those poor people in other countries who don't have equal access to higher education. But the fact of the matter is that it's an issue here, right? It's an issue of financial access. And so the problem that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time defining the problem, and then we'll get on to the more exciting part about the solution. The problem is simply that we don't have equal access to higher education in the United States because of cost. This is a study done for the Department of Education a few years back, saying that in the first 10 years of this decade that this is how many students, and these are students who are college qualified. Notice that it says college qualified. In other words, they took all the right high school classes, they did well enough to go to college, but they didn't finish college because of cost. Because of cost. There were a lot more who didn't finish college. These are the ones that the study attributes to cost. That's why they didn't finish, right? That's huge. And it's sad. It really is. I want to point out one thing here. Excuse me, I'm going to move that a little bit. The reason that it's time to do something about this is because cost is an issue this is different than it's ever been before. Cost. The financial burden on students is different than it's ever been before. And I don't care when you went to college. It's different now. Worse now. This is an average, this is a U.S., across the whole U.S. These lines show the two sources of funding for higher education in a public university at least. Tuition and state funding. The green line is state funding, the red line is tuition funding. If you look back at the left side of this graph, that's about when I was ending my 6 years of undergrad. And you can see the percentage of my education that was my burden, that was mine. That's the red line down here. It's a fraction of the total, right? It's probably about a quarter of it. And today it's becoming pretty much 50-50. This is across the whole U.S. In some states it's worse than others. And I'll quickly show you a few states. Here's Iowa. I'm flying to Iowa, the University of Iowa, tomorrow. Run a workshop for faculty there. This is where they're at. They crossed a long time ago, a few years, 5, 6 years ago. Here's Colorado. I was in last week running some workshops. That's the worst I've seen, to be honest. Here's Minnesota. Massachusetts. Sorry, I know you're not all from Massachusetts, but I had to pick one. Yeah. So, that's, of all the ones I guess I've shown, that's about as good as it's been. It's pretty close to the average. So the point is, again here, that there's more of the burden being put on students. And if you're a student and you're trying to afford higher education, you really have only a couple of options, right? You have the money, okay, then you're set. You work for the money, or what's the other one? You borrow the money, right? And we'll get to that. So here's some numbers I put together about working, what it would take to work. This is University of Minnesota specific data. I don't think that we're special, but it's the data I have. This shows how many hours a student would have to work at a minimum wage job to afford a year of tuition at the University of Minnesota. Number of hours at a minimum wage job. So if you look at the 60s through the 80s, we're at 200, 300, 400 hours. And if you do that math, 40 hours a week, that's about 10 weeks at most, right? That's a summer job, a full-time summer job, 10 weeks. Now look where we are now. Sorry, it's a little washed out, but it's pretty close to 1,700 or so, and that was a few years ago. And now the minimum wage going up is going to help out a little bit, and it's been going up a lot of places. But if you do the math, a 40-hour-a-week full-time job, 52 weeks a year is 2,080 hours. Is that right? So we're almost there, right? I mean, we're almost saying that you need a full-time job year-round to afford a year of tuition. That's just tuition. That's not books, it's not room and board, that's not anything else. That's just tuition. We don't want our students to be full-time employees, do we? We want them to be full-time students. Okay, so again, it's different than it's ever been before. Borrowing, as you said, right? About 2/3 of our students borrow. And this is the average that those borrowers, and close to $30,000. I think this is getting a little bit better because the federal government is cracking down on some of the for-profit institutions, and a lot of that debt is. But this is student debt nationally, that's the red line, compared to credit card debt nationally, which is the green line. And when I started this project, the lines were just starting to cross. You can see where the financial crisis happened there, and people didn't borrow quite as much on their credit cards. The amazing thing to me here is that if you look over here, this is only 2006, this is only, 9 years ago. And it was at $500 billion of debt. And now we're at 1.3 something trillion dollars 9 years later. That's crazy. I don't quite understand that. But that's the situation we're in. So that's the problem, in a way. That's part of the problem. And the thing that we can do something about in this room, we can help with, or when I'm talking with faculty, oftentimes they'll say, yeah, but they're such a, books are such a, and supplies, course content is such a small part of that amount of money. That's absolutely true. It is not definitely the biggest piece. Tuition and fees, room and board is going to be much higher than that. But it's the part that we can do something about. And it also holds a little bit of a special place. It's a special cost. It has special impact. I want to show you why that is. First of all, textbook prices are going up. We've seen these kind of graphs. It's 3 times the rate of inflation. This is an article from about a month and a half ago. University of Michigan researcher who story came out about saying that textbook prices have risen over 1,000% since 1977, and inflation's gone up about 300% since then. So again, about 3 times the rate of inflation. And this researcher actually said that higher education textbooks are actually the fastest growing cost, anything of all items in the consumer price index, higher ed textbook prices have increased the fastest. Of all items that the consumer price index measures, which is everything. That was I was surprised by that, because I thought maybe healthcare or even tuition or whatever would have been higher than that. But look at that. This is what the College Board says, what a student can expect to pay this year, for this past year actually, between $1,200 and $1,300. And so the money is important, but it isn't, again, why we're here, right? We're here because we want our students to succeed and to have to succeed in higher education. Because of the cost, students are forced to deal with it, and these are some of the ways they choose to deal with it. I actually need to add 2 more items to that list that I have become convinced have now become really prominent. So we've got purchase an older edition, delay buying it, don't buy it at all. What other strategies do students use? And I don't mean they can buy electronic versions, they can rent them, those kinds of things. Those are kind of legitimate things that will get them the textbook that they need. What about things that maybe not quite so...
Scan a copy of somebody else?
Sure. Scan or copy somebody else. Illegally copy one, and it could either be scanning, photocopying a paper version, or it could be downloading a textbook from the web. That was one I need to add here, is pirating, which I don't even like using that word, but, sir?
At UMass Boston, a lot of the kids are renting the books for about $60 a semester.
Right, and so renting is something that's become kind of a legitimate, that's something bookstores are promoting, I know, at least in Minnesota, right?